Most people don't realize that the quality of their relationships often depends on who they listen to, not how hard they try. When emotions are involved, the brain doesn't process information objectively. It filters reality through fear, attachment, and hope. That's why even smart people make poor relationship decisions when they rely on the wrong voices. By the end of this, you'll understand why some people give advice that quietly protects you, while others unintentionally push you toward confusion. You'll also learn how different perspectives activate different parts of your thinking, helping you see your relationship with clarity instead of emotion. The goal isn't to follow advice blindly, but to know whose insight actually serves your long-term happiness. Human beings are wired to seek guidance during uncertainty. When we feel emotionally exposed, the brain looks for safety and validation. Relationship decisions trigger the same neural circuits as risk-taking, which is why external input feels comforting. But not all advice is equal. Some advice stabilizes you. Other advice simply mirrors your fears. One of the most powerful sources of relationship advice often comes from your mother. This isn't about cliches or emotional comfort, it's about pattern recognition. A mother has watched you grow, change, struggle, and repeat behaviors long before you were aware of them. Her brain holds decades of data about your emotional responses. When she notices something feels off, she's often responding to inconsistencies you can't see yet. What's interesting is that maternal advice tends to activate the brain's long-term thinking system. It shifts your focus away from instant gratification and toward emotional safety. When she asks whether you're being respected or if you're compromising too much, she's guiding you to notice patterns, not moments. That kind of advice slows impulsive decisions and strengthens emotional regulation. Then there's the advice that comes from a sister. A sister often occupies a unique psychological space. She understands your emotional language, but isn't emotionally responsible for your outcomes. This makes her more likely to speak plainly. When you're overthinking texts, misreading silence, or excusing bad behavior, a sister often cuts through the noise. This directness matters because the brain under romantic stress tends to exaggerate threats and minimize red flags. A sister's feedback helps recalibrate perception. She isn't invested in preserving your fantasy, she's invested in your emotional dignity. That balance allows her to challenge your assumptions without invalidating your feelings. Advice can also come from an unexpected source, your children. This doesn't mean burdening them with adult problems, it means observing what they admire, what makes them feel safe, and who they respond to positively. Children are remarkably sensitive to emotional energy. They notice consistency, kindness, and emotional availability long before adults verbalize it. Psychologically, children respond to authenticity. When they gravitate toward certain qualities in people, they're responding to emotional predictability. Asking what they like about someone gives you insight into how your partner shows up when no performance is involved. It can quietly reveal whether your relationship environment feels stable or tense. Another powerful source of advice comes from the friend who has settled into a long-term partnership, not because their relationship is perfect, but because longevity requires skills, emotional repair, compromise, patience, and perspective. These friends understand that attraction alone doesn't sustain connection. When you speak to someone who has navigated years of partnership, their advice often centers around pacing, communication, and emotional maturity. Their brains have adapted to delayed gratification. They've learned how to manage conflict without escalating it. That perspective can ground you when emotions feel everything urgent. Equally valuable, though often misunderstood, is advice from a friend who has gone through a divorce. Their insight isn't about cynicism, it's about consequence. Loss forces the brain to revisit decisions with painful clarity. Divorce often sharpens awareness of overlooked issues like resentment, financial stress, or unspoken expectations. Listening to someone who has experienced relational loss activates a different kind of learning. It brings realism into focus, not fear, but foresight. Their advice tends to emphasize boundaries, honesty, and accountability. These are lessons learned not from theory, but from experience. Single friends also carry valuable insight, especially those who have spent time reflecting rather than rushing. Their perspective often highlights emotional patterns rather than attachment urgency. Because they're not emotionally entangled, they can notice dynamics you normalize. Single friends often ask the questions you avoid. Are you settling? Are you being heard? Are you avoiding loneliness or choosing connection? These questions activate self-awareness rather than reassurance. Their role isn't to tell you what to do, but to help you notice what you're ignoring. Then there's the colleague. This might seem surprising, but workplace friendships provide a form of neutral grounding. Colleagues see you under pressure, responsibility, and routine. They understand your energy when you're not performing romance. Their advice tends to be practical, fast, and emotionally detached. When you're suddenly invited on a date or feeling unsure about how you're coming across, a colleague's feedback is rooted in observation, not projection. This kind of advice reduces emotional overwhelm. It helps you act rather than overthink. What's important to understand is that the brain processes advice differently depending on emotional proximity. The closer someone is to your emotional core, the more their advice influences attachment responses. The farther they are, the more they activate logic. Balance comes from listening to both. Here's a surprising insight. The best relationship advice rarely tells you what to do. It helps you see what you're already doing. It doesn't push you toward action. It brings awareness to patterns. That's why the source matters more than the words themselves. Ask yourself this: when you feel confused in a relationship, who do you instinctively turn to? Is it someone who calms you or someone who challenges you? Both serve a purpose, but too much of one creates imbalance. Emotional safety without truth leads to stagnation. Truth without empathy leads to shutdown. Healthy guidance activates both reflection and agency. It helps you slow down without freezing. It helps you move forward without rushing. The people who do this consistently are the ones worth listening to. Relationships don't fail because of lack of love. They fail because of misalignment, avoidance, and unexamined patterns. The right advice doesn't save relationships, it saves self-awareness, and self-awareness changes everything. As you reflect on the voices in your life, notice which ones leave you clearer rather than more anxious. Notice who helps you feel grounded instead of reactive. Those are the perspectives shaping healthier attachment, even when the truth is uncomfortable. Connection thrives when decisions are informed, not impulsive. When advice comes from experience, observation, and emotional honesty, it becomes a mirror rather than a map. You still choose the direction, but you see yourself more clearly along the way. If this resonated, take a moment to reflect on whose advice you've been ignoring. Share your thoughts, engage with the conversation, and stay connected for deeper insights into human behavior and relationships.